Hello, my name is Stephen Matheny. I want to tell you about a very special event taking place in our area September 16th through the 18th. I know that you, like me, are very concerned about the spiritual decline in our nation and our need to cry out to God for revival. In the Old Testament book of Hosea, chapter 14, verses 1 and 2, God says to the nation of Israel, "Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have stumbled because of your iniquity. Take words with you and return to the Lord. Say to him, take away all iniquity and receive us graciously." This is a timely message for America. September 16th through 18th, churches in our area are joining together to cry out to God for spiritual awakening and revival at the Return to Me Southwest North Carolina Prayer Conference. Would you come and add your voice?
But one time, when we were together in an unusual circumstance and speaking of the most precious matters that a father can speak to with his son, I just felt the time had come I ought to tell him, and I said, "Son, my aspiration for you is that you should be far more holy and useful than your father." He sat very quietly. He looked at me with great care. And he said, "Dad, I will never forget that." And every once in a while, he will look at me in an unusual way. And he'll simply say, "Dad, I remember." Now that's the aspiration for a mere man, for his son. But God's aspirations for you are infinitely higher and better. I have no way to know precisely what God's aspirations for you are. I only know they're wonderful. I only know that God's plan and God's purpose for your life is infinitely greater than any plan or any purpose you could devise on your own. And when you sin against God's aspirations for you. You guarantee you cannot become what God has designed you for. The great evil of all sin consists in the fact it is against God, against thee. Thee only have I sinned and done this evil in thy sight.
Paul is not using the imperative to say to Timothy, you must be a man of God. He's using the indicative. You are a man of God. If you're a man here today, a young man, an older man, and you are a follower of Christ, you're not supposed to be striving to be a man of God. That is to be who you are. We are to be men of God. And then he gives some imperatives to say, this is what you will look like. This is how a man of God is to be described. The problem today is, as we saw in the video, there aren't enough men. There aren't enough men in our culture. There aren't enough men in our churches. There aren't enough men of God. There aren't even enough young men in ministry who even aspire to be described as a man of God. Sitting Bull, as an Apache, at age 12, had to spend a week in the bush to survive. That's what Apaches did. The Maasai, until recent days, because of animal protection, the Maasai for generations and generations, if you wanted to be a warrior among the Maasai and you were a young man, you had to kill a lion with a spear. David, as a teenager, as a young man, killed a lion and a bear. We go to the malls and we build a bear. Daniel, as a middle schooler, was ripped away from his land, taken to a pagan land. We have young men who act like they're at the end of their limit. They can't make it because the professors give them too many assignments. Stop watching SportsCenter. Spurgeon at 21 preached to thousands in London. Whitefield at 25 preached to thousands. He was the most popular man in all the American colonies in the height of the Great Awakening. Martin Luther at 34. At 34, Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses on the door in Wittenberg. But the average age of a man who buys video games is 37. That's why there's no reformation today. And I'm not saying you shouldn't play a video game, or you can't watch a ball game on TV, or you can't. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we're too possessed with those things. We're not possessed with things that matter.